I recognize myself for 5 minutes for additional questioning, and I want to start by just touching on a couple of quick things. You mentioned your excitement around putting in an office in Longworth to be able to sort of highlight the work that GAO does, and I think that's important. But I do want to ask you what other avenues you're looking at to try to build awareness and maybe bridge that awareness gap that currently exists. While I will tell you that certainly we will take the consideration of putting your information into the new member orientation, the reality is there's a lot of people that want time in those meetings, and it becomes a competition in some ways of what's a priority. What I would tell you is I'm not sure that I had a lot of awareness of what GAO did or does until maybe the last year or so. And for me, knowing now the reporting and information that you're providing is incredibly crucial. And so I want to help you do that, but I'd also like to know sort of how you're addressing that issue. Second point I want to make is maybe more of a little bit of a concern. You mentioned that you are focused on being nonpartisan. That's important to you. But you also said in your comments that you've developed some legislative suggestions. Where did that directive come from?
In terms of developing legislative language, well, we do it in two cases. One, we're asked to by some of the committees.
Okay.
In areas that are GAO, sort of hallmark areas like fraud, waste, and abuse, I've done that as a service in those areas, but only in those areas. We don't get into policy areas or issues associated with that unless we're asked to, and sometimes we provide drafting legislative language to the committees without any, attribution to GAO. It's just as a service to them.
Perfect. I think I just want to be cautious about that, right? If you're providing legislative suggestions, it could be perceived as you're being partisan in one way or another, and I think that's something that we want to try to avoid.
No, I only do it where this what I refer to as on fraud, and fraud's a
bipartisan
issue. I think
I would hope
nobody's supporting fraud. I want to fix fraud. So I only do it in those sort of safe harbor
Perfect.
areas.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
You want to talk a little bit about the addressing the awareness gap?
Yeah. Well, we have an Office of Congressional Relations. They outreach to the committees. One of the things that's...
But let's talk about individual offices, because I think the committees is great, and I think that's important, but I think that there's so much value in actually connecting with individual offices, especially as an appropriator myself. You provide a lot of information, and I don't know that maybe that's a place that's been a focus, but...
Yeah, well, we sent letters to all 80 new members this year with a link to GAO. I had a message on there about how they could get our access to our services or whatever. What's happened over the years, as I look back, when I first joined GAO, we had over 5,000 people. Okay, we got about 3,500 right now. And so our priorities, protocols that we worked out with the Congress is to do work based upon, priority one is things in law or committee or conference reports accompanying the law. Two is chair and ranking members. We treat both the same. And then third is a request from an individual member of Congress. We haven't had enough resources to entertain that for a while, so that the members have to go, individual members have to go to a committee to get support to get a GAO request. That wasn't always that way. Okay. So we had more reason to interact with the members before, and they had more interest in receiving information from us.
Well, so I think that you all provide such a valuable service. I understand what you're saying about the challenges.
I think what could be done to be helpful, it would be for this committee to encourage other committees to, at least within the committee, to have a meeting about what GAO is doing for the committee and what all the members are on the committee. Because right now it's usually the chair or ranking member or both that understand what's going on in their staff, but the individuals on the members of that committee may not be aware of GAO's extensive work for the committee in a more fulsome manner.
Perfect.
We'll try to continue to meet with individual members' offices to try to provide the services.
Great.
I mean, but that's
thank you.
And whatever ideas you have there would be helpful.
You bet. Lastly, I want to pivot to GAO detailees, which it has become quite a fun topic for us in the office. Can you talk a little bit about currently how many GAO detailees are out in the field with placements either in the House or the Senate, and have these numbers changed over time?
Yeah. Well, we try to keep it around 12 or 14 people right now. Historically,
And how long are they typically detailed to?
by law, they can only be detailed to committees and for up to a year.
Okay. Is that how long you typically have them there, as a year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sometimes they'll go for 6 months and then, you know, we get requests to go longer than a year, and we have to have that conversation, you know. But in the 80s, you know, when we had many more people, we had many more detailees.
Yeah.
And that's an area that can be discussed.
Okay.
I mean, it's very important, but the perception is what we try to do is balance it. Because on committees, if you put one on one side of the aisle, you have to probably do it on the other side.
Absolutely, okay.
And so you don't have that perception of trying to tip, you know, the balance of resources that is determined by the majority and the minority
You got it.
rules of the
My
Congress.
time has expired, so I'm going to